this? 3 news videos. You could say Tom and Jack are causing triple trouble. Oh. Nailed it.
No.
What's the problem? Am I too cool for you, Jack?
No, it's fine, Tom. It's fine.
Some would say I'm number 1. Some would say little hat.
You got any headlines for us, Tom? Any
No,
headlines?
I've just got filters. Okay. Just filters.
Okay.
Just bare filters. Here is your wrestling news. AEW really wants a controversial star. 2 matches have been pulled from New Year's Smash Night 2, and a top WWE Smackdown star is keen for more NXT call-ups. Find out who in a little bit. I feel like it's been a while since we talked about this controversial star making a reappearance in the wrestling world, but it looks as if there is some rumblings from people within AEW that there's a home for them there. Who are we talking about, Jack?
We're talking about Tessa Blanchard. Obviously, she left Impact under very strange circumstances, despite having just won the Impact World Championship, which, of course, was groundbreaking because it was a women's wrestler winning a predominantly men's world championship, which was huge news at the time. And then suddenly she was gone. Obviously, allegations came out around the time she won the belt of bullying backstage. There were some allegations of racism as well from various wrestlers. That's why she's a controversial star. But at the same time, it's really tricky to talk about because she's also, really, really good. Really, really good at wrestling. So I can see why AEW would want her, but I can see why that would stir up a lot of ill feeling as well.
There was this all sort of came to light when Tessa Blanchard, on the weekend that she was going to be crowned the Impact World Champion, put out a tweet with an anti-bullying sentiment. Then all of a sudden, quite a few wrestlers from across the wrestling divide came forward and went, "Well, that's interesting. You say that. What with you being a bully and all." And then she won the title. She did a speech afterwards where she claimed people make mistakes.
Yeah.
And she pushed forward with that. And then with Impact, she disappeared from the scene altogether. She didn't take part in several rounds of Impact TV tapings. Obviously, this was at the height of the first bit of COVID that we had. So there was a reluctance to be involved in that there. But then what we discovered was when she was asked to do a video to promote an upcoming match, she never got around to doing it. She didn't do it for whatever reason. And this led to her contract being terminated and her being stripped of the title. And and with the exception of a few appearances on the indie scene, we haven't really seen much from her since.
No, we haven't really. And in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, they are talking about potentially AEW wanting to sign her, or maybe, I don't know if it's so much a case of them having an aim to sign her, or is it more just wishing they could sign her? And it's hard to tell when it's just down in writing. You can't really gauge the inflection of what's being said there, so it's quite a strange one.
We'll keep an eye on it. Possibly Tessa Blanchard being talked about within AEW once more. Staying with AEW, they did the Monster Mash. It was a New Year's Smash. Night 1 was very good. Night 2 has had some changes, hasn't it, Jack?
Yeah, 2 matches have been pulled from New Year's Smash Night 2. I'm getting confused with all the dashes and the smashes happening all over the place. But yes, 2 matches have been pulled. One regarding Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa. Obviously, they've been feuding quite intensely for quite some time now. But apparently Thunder Rosa came into contact with somebody who was COVID positive, so now obviously has to isolate for a little while and will miss the next set of AEW tapings, or in fact has already missed the previous set of tapings, I believe. So that means that that match is off, but apparently it will take place at a later date, which I think is a good thing, because they've been feuding for a little while now, and I think everyone wants to see it reach its natural conclusion. But the other match, well, that involves the Young Bucks, and I don't believe, Tom, that this match had been announced, but it was still in the pipeline going ahead. They obviously were part of this very central angle at the end of Dynamite this week, where the Good Brothers returned and everything, and Nick Jackson sustained a bit of an injury. He was supposed to be throwing super kicks in that final segment. According to Dave Meltzer, he didn't do that and iced his leg all night because he thought that it was a contusion. So only Matt Jackson threw a super kick during the big turn angle, but both he and Nick held up the sign and everything. Now, According to Meltzer, Jackson reckons he'll be okay to wrestle by the 20th of January, which is the next taping since the 13th of January show was taped on the 7th of January, if that makes sense. Originally, the Bucks were going to be in an added match on the 13th of January show, but it hasn't been announced yet, and it's not happening now anyway. So we don't know who their opponents would have been, but it looks as though the Bucks would have had some sort of match.
Yeah, but for now it seems like they're off, so we won't see the Young Bucks competing on night 2, nor will we see Britt Baker in action against, you pronounced it wrong by the way, Thunder Rosa. Rosa. Roll your R's. Roll
Tom,
your R's.
That's one of my favourite episodes of your Desert Island Graps.
Oh, with Thunder Rosa.
Yeah,
she's just great.
Yeah, she's just very enthusiastic, isn't she? She just really
my favourite thing was
like
somebody who's so good, like a genuine badass in the wrestling ring, and one that is so experienced in mixed martial arts as well. She says one of her ambitions in life was to become a MILF. So, applauded. Love the bones off of Thunder Rosa. The bones off, and get well soon. So what's the plans for AEW going forward? Because they're taking a break from Daily's Place, aren't they?
Yes, just like how we saw WWE mid-lockdown shift locations from the Performance Center to the Thunderdome. We are apparently, again according to Meltzer, maybe about to see AEW move from Jacksonville, from Daily's Place, to Miami. So the same state, they'd be under the same regulations, whatever they are at the time. Obviously they could always change. But it seems as though they'll be moving cities. Potential reasons for that, it seems to be the idea that Miami is much warmer. And even though we Brits tend to think of Florida as a warm place all the time, in Jacksonville it has been getting a bit cold recently, especially for pretending to fight each other with your tops off. So, I mean, I assume the wrestlers might be a little bit happier about wrestling in Miami if they can find a venue. Apparently also it's getting very hard to sell tickets in Jacksonville because they run there so often. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but they're surely the only wrestling in town. So
you'd have thought so, yeah. If you're going to go to the wrestling, you're going to go there. So this is something that we mentioned on the news start of the week with a potential move to Miami, and the update on that is it's something that is still being discussed, not been 100% confirmed. Very likely, though, we will see AEW make a move to somewhere warmer to ease up on the diamond cutting nipples that are no doubt becoming an issue with some of the blokes. See, and I will repeat what I said on Monday. If that's an issue with AEW, why haven't you hired Gene Money? Gene Money, who famously wrestles with his nipples covered up, he'd be a shoo-in at Daily's Place.
He would.
Hashtag money for Daily's Place.
Yes, but could he get over there at the moment? That is surely the only thing stopping Tony from signing Gene Money.
I'm sure Gene Money is such a beast that if he flapped his arms enough, he would fly there.
Yes.
The dust is settling from New Japan Wrestle Kingdom. An amazing 2 nights of action and some great follow-up on New Year's Dash as well. From the New Japan world, there's obviously potentially some issues coming up since there have been some developments in Japan, haven't there, Jack?
They have, and I need to give a shout out to Aidan, our resident news hound, as Ross and Matthew, I think, often call him. Because he really did his research for this one. He went and looked at the Japan Times. He went and looked at what the Guardian was saying about Japanese policy towards the pandemic at the moment. He really acted like a proper journalist, which is far more than any of the rest of us could say.
Big shout to Aidan, our newshound. Put a picture of Aidan, the newshound, down there. Put some love on his name.
So I'll start with the wider view of what's going on and then zone into what wrestling journalism world is saying, so Meltzer basically. But from the Japan Times, Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga on Thursday declared a second, albeit less comprehensive, state of emergency in Tokyo, Kanagawa, Saitama and Chiba prefectures. So Tokyo is included in that, obviously, at the moment, the kind of epicenter of New Japan. To contain the fast-spreading coronavirus, which has stretched parts of the nation's healthcare system to its breaking point, so it's quite a crucial thing to do. The restrictions will enter into force on Friday and remain in place until at least February the 7th, so quite a relatively concise state of emergency, I suppose, but one which I guess is really telling. They'll have a look at what happens towards the end of that. They will not be lifted until the affected prefectures see a significant reduction in benchmarks such as hospital occupancy rates, and positivity rates. So how does that relate to wrestling? Well, At press time, according to the Wrestling Observer, Tokyo is going into a lockdown where live events are supposed to end by an 8 p.m. curfew, and restaurants have to close at that time, at least until the end of the month. How long this lasts, as we've just seen, is anyone's guess really, depends on other things. And right now, New Japan is planning on keeping its schedule going. The New Japan tradition on weeknight Korakuen Hall shows are usually from 6:30 p.m. and end at around 9, but with the 8 p.m. curfew, the idea of a 90-minute house show is way too short. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean they're going to scrap those house show type events, or does that mean they're going to just push them back a little bit?
Maybe start earlier. Maybe do some afternoon wrestlings.
Yeah, I guess so. But
Saturday afternoon wrestling. Get Daddy in Haystacks at Korakuen Hall.
Yes. So I guess with all of that, if we look at all of that as one kind of thing, that basically means that there is going to be a state of emergency in Tokyo. New Japan are going to keep going as long as they can, at the moment anyway, as things stand, but they might encounter a few difficulties if things change.
Wrestle Kingdom 15 breaking all kinds of records as well, right, Jack?
Absolutely as well. Partly because obviously there were so many fewer people live in attendance. But yeah, New Japan World, their version of the WWE Network, I suppose it's fair to say, set several records this past week. The total number of subscribers wasn't released, but there were reports that the increase the week of the show was the second largest in history, according to Dave Meltzer, who was like the go-to guy for this sort of thing, trailing only 2018, which had a 40,000 number growth in subscribers, but obviously the numbers haven't been released for this year, but apparently it's the second largest. Why was 2018 so large? That's because that was when Chris Jericho turned up and wrestled Kenny Omega. But this year, the Night 1 event of Wrestle Kingdom had the most live viewers in any event in the history of their streaming service, and Ibushi versus Jay White on Night 2 set the record for the most watched match. So yeah, it's been smashing it on both nights.
And in ring as well, like looking at some of the ratings for some of these matches, the all important star ratings. How have they fared, Jack?
Now we all know, a disclaimer first of all, and Dave Meltzer, from what I've seen, is happy to admit himself that his star ratings are just his opinion. You don't need to agree with his star ratings, but people do get quite cross sometimes. So I just thought I'd throw that out there first to make sure everybody knows that it's just used as a barometer. It's just Meltzer's seen so much wrestling. This is what he thought of these matches.
It's like graded, isn't it? It's in the idea that it's just what we think. Like, I don't want paragraph long messages about why I'm wrong about wrestling because I've given something an A.
In fairness, I don't mind people, engaging in debate if they
do.
Say like okay. So this week we saw Tom, it's big numbers. We saw five-star matches. Five matches that achieved Dave Meltzer's maximum rating or more. Which
there'd have been 5 stars in the Tokyo. Oh wait, hang on. Sorry.
Well, one of them wasn't in the Tokyo Domes.
What? It'd have been 6 in the Tokyo Dome.
It would have, but the other 4 very much were in the Tokyo Dome. So, getting 5 stars was Ibushi versus Naito, the main event of Night 1 of Wrestle Kingdom. The semi-main event got 5.25 stars, breaking the scale. That was Okada and Ospreay. On Night 2, we had an undercard match which totally stole the show. Shingo Takagi versus Jeff Cobb got 5 stars, and I agree. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. The main event got 5.25. That was Ibushi and Jay White. And then the one match not in New Japan that got 5 stars as well. Kenny Omega feeling a bit left out because all his pals were off in Japan having 5-star matches, and he thought, well, that's what I used to do. So he just had one in AEW instead with Phoenix in the main event of Dynamite. A match that many are calling the best match in Dynamite history. And it's definitely up there. I'd need to watch a couple of matches back before I decided that, but it's definitely in the conversation. So
what did you give that match? What did I give that match? An A+, Tom. An A+. Well, it would have been an A++ in the Tokyo Dome. And finally, a top SmackDown star has been given a lot of love to the Black and Gold brand, as it looks like they want more from that side to head up that way. What's the story, Jack and Ori?
So this is a story concerning Daniel Bryan, who has been taking a bit more of a creative role, hasn't he, reportedly? Am I right in saying that?
He has, yeah. I think it's part of his, since he's come back, he's been more actively involved with who he works with and other programs and stuff, which is a brilliant role for him to be in.
Well, the Observer is saying that Bryan in particular, with his role in creative, has been pushing to bring in more NXT talent, as you alluded to SmackDown to freshen things up. But the counter of that has been the track record of everyone brought up in the last 2 years from NXT and how Vince ends up losing interest in them, and that there's a roster full of guys who could be used that aren't even on TV now. So while I do see Daniel Bryan's point that, hey, we've got this developmental brand full of amazing talent, why not use it to freshen up one of our main roster shows? I also see that counter argument that, hang on, because sometimes when these people are called up, the way that they are presented and the way that they are kind of forgotten by Vince suddenly makes them seem not so badass anymore.
There is this weird thing that happens between the transition from the Capitol Wrestling Center to the Thunderdome, where suddenly a lot of what makes them is stripped away a lot of the time, and there is a concern. But I kind of feel like if Daniel Bryan is pushing for them to come in, like, I feel much better about the idea of somebody like Rhea Ripley or Damian Priest coming up, which we talked about in a previous video today. With Daniel Bryan overseeing it, I kind of feel a bit better, because as we've seen from Daniel Bryan, he's very giving in the ring. He's full of ideas, and he would help those people get over. He knows what it would take. And also, Daniel Bryan is somebody who has worked worked the indie scene for a long time until he came to WWE, and he's been able to adapt and become as great a wrestler as he was on the indies in the WWE style. So he's somebody that you could definitely work with.
I think so as well, and I like to think, part of me likes to think, and I've got no idea how true this is, but I like to think that SmackDown is where they can kind of get away with more because Vince doesn't care as much about it. I don't know if that's just my opinion, but I feel like if you go to Raw, you're being micromanaged, and if you go to SmackDown, maybe some weeks he just can't be that bothered. Maybe, anyway.
You want to be on the show which Vince is less bothered about.
Yeah, you want to be on the blind side. You want to be on the dark side of the moon.
The dark side of the ring.
Yes.
Actually, you don't want to be on the dark side of the ring.
Unless you're the voiceover guy now.
Unless you're the voiceover guy, in which case you're probably getting paid well. Yeah. That's it from news today. The Cultaholic podcast on later on today. What's the big question today? Can you hint? Can you tell us?
I'll just tell you.
Tell us what the big question is.
It's what is next for the Bullet Club, or whatever they're calling them in AEW.
Ooh, what is next for Name Redacted? Find out with Jack, Ross, and Matthew, the Queen of Sparkling Water, later on today.
I get so annoyed with him at one point that I throw my bottle of Coke across the room.
Yes!
He really winds me. He really was winding me up. He was doing it on purpose. So just everyone look forward to that. Yeah.
Look forward to Jack getting annoyed by Matthew. There's one thing in life that we get great joy from, is finding reasons to annoy Jack. Yeah. Have yourself a great weekend, however you spend it. Love you, bye.
Oh my god, I thought you were going to take them off. I was like, hang on, what's going on?
No, I'm keeping them on, baby.
Oh, fair enough, yeah.